So first off, I hope you all will bear with me. I got like a slight cold or something. I'm stuffed up. But anyway, I wasn't really planning on covering WandaVision, which is the new Disney Plus MCU TV show. I wasn't gonna like do a weekly review like I do for The Mandalorian because this channel I think is gonna be mostly dedicated to Star Wars stuff, but I'm gonna branch out too a little bit to other things, which I already have. Like I've talked about Call of Duty and like Indiana Jones and gaming and like, so I'm not gonna just stick with Star Wars, but it's gonna be the main focus. But I didn't think WandaVision was gonna be anything to write home about, so I wasn't gonna review it. But episode 5 kind of changed everything. I still don't know if I'm probably not gonna review the next 5. I might. I don't know if I want to go back and review the first 5 now or yeah, I don't know. I might just do the second half. Who knows? I'll figure that out when it happens. But Marvel just dropped like a nuclear bomb on the MCU. In episode 5, like, first of all, I'm glad that I didn't read about anything about this episode because I went in completely not knowing anything. And there was people that had read an article before they watched it talking about there was headlines that said like there's going to be a Luke Skywalker level cameo in this episode, and if I had read that I would have been waiting for it, like, oh, who's it going to be? But I didn't expect any type of cameo or anything, so this was just a huge shock to me. So basically they've blown the door wide open for the multiverse in this episode. Like, there's no going back. This changes the MCU forever. I guess I'll just read this instead of summarizing it myself. This is just an article talking about how shocking it was. It just says X-Men Assemble ? In addition to wild reveals, aging twins, and dead dogs. Yeah, that was weird, the aging twins thing. The overloaded 5th episode of WandaVision may have just dropped one of the biggest moments in the MCU, the arrival of mutants. In the waning moments of the episode, Vision finally catches on that he's in a fake reality and argues with Wanda, who claims she's not actually behind everything in the sitcom world, but the pair are interrupted by a ring at the door. Wanda goes to answer, and the camera reveals none other than Wanda's supposedly dead brother, Pietro. But it's not Aaron Taylor Johnson, who played Quicksilver in Age of Ultron. It's Evan Peters, a.k.a. the Quicksilver from Fox's X-Men movies. What? Yeah, that was my reaction when I was watching the episode. I just yelled out, "What?" Like, because I couldn't believe it. I was confused, shocked, surprised, excited, but also, like, I'm of two minds of this whole thing. On one hand, I think introducing the multiverse is kind of a can of worms that I don't know if they should open. You can't put the genie back in the bottle after you do this, because multiverse works in the comics, I think, because they constantly are resetting the canon in comics. Like, I don't like that they do that all the time. That they just keep resetting the status quo in comics a lot. But in movies, one of the reasons why Infinity War and Endgame worked so well is because you could feel the stakes. Like, this had been one cohesive universe since the beginning, since Iron Man in 2008. And if you introduce a multiverse, it kind of ruins all stakes, if you think about it. Because, I mean, think about it. You can just... Iron Man died in our universe. If you really wanted to, Disney could go back and pluck Iron Man from an alternate reality, like a reality where Thanos didn't exist or something. Just pluck Iron Man from that reality, put it in our main timeline, and boom, Iron Man's back. Like, anyone that dies, you can just replace with an alternate reality version of them with... I mean, I guess you could say that's stakes because the original timeline version of that character is dead. Like, Vision from the main MCU timeline's dead. So is Loki. But then, like, Loki, the TV show with Loki, that's a different Loki. That's, like, not our, quote-unquote, our Loki. And they're already going to have to deal with Gamora. Like, when they get Gamora back, because she died in Infinity War, she's dead. So, and we already had, like, multiple movies of development with her. And now you have to start back from zero again, because they're going to probably pluck a Gamora from another timeline and put her back into our timeline. And so that means you have to go through all this character development again, and she's gonna have to basically like re-fall in love with Chris Pratt and all that. So I don't know. Multiverses are tricky in movies because you could screw up all the stakes, and I just don't know if it's gonna work. There's no going back, definitely, because this leads into Doctor Strange 2, which is called In the Multiverse of Madness. So they're doubling down on the multiverse concept. And then the next Spider-Man movie is rumored to have all 3 actors that played Spider-Man. and a couple villains from different iterations of the movie. So like Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, Tom Holland as Spider-Man, and then apparently what's his face from the guy that played Alfred Molina, who played Doc Ock in Spider-Man 2, is supposedly back as Doc Ock, which is cool. And they kind of already did that with bringing J. Jonah Jameson back as, I mean, wow, that shows you how good he is as him, if I call him that. I mean, J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson. They brought him back in Far From Home. That wasn't a multiverse thing. That was just like, oh, he's just so good as a character. Just do it again. Like they weren't trying to say he's from the Raimi verse. But it is interesting that Raimi, they're using elements from Raimi. Well, that's the rumor in the new Spider-Man, and then now Raimi's directing Doctor Strange 2. So it's kind of cool that he's kind of been brought back into the fold at Marvel. So yeah, that's my trepidatious side about the multiverse. But on just the purely like fan side of me, the fan wish fulfillment like type side of me, the implications of this are nuts. Like being able to just we have the question about whether or not is this really the Quicksilver from the X-Men movies? Like, did he literally just get plucked out of that timeline and brought into here? Because, I mean, in Apocalypse, actually no, in Dark Phoenix, he has that cameo and it shows him leaving somewhere. So I wonder if they actually planned this ahead of time, because I think Disney, because it was right at the time that Disney was buying Fox, I think Disney had a little bit of creative control over Dark Phoenix, because at that time Fox was being absorbed by them. So I think they purposely had Quicksilver like leave on a plane, and like he had like 2 seconds of screen time, because maybe they were setting this up, because that was that the 80s or the 90s? Well, I don't know. Let's just say 80s. I'm not sure, but that would make perfect sense of why he shows up here, because WandaVision's set in the 80s. Well, currently right now it is. But it could just be a ruse. I hope it's not just a ruse. I hope it's not just like a little fun thing that they did where look, she's imagining a different Quicksilver, but we know this from, because in the episode they're like, she recast Quicksilver, and that could all be what it is, and that's it. I hope that's not the case. I hope they just basically say, hey, this is the new Quicksilver. Aaron Taylor Johnson's Quicksilver is dead, but this is the first step of merging the X-Men universe and the MCU, and I think they could do that with the other actors, like James McAvoy. I mean, how old is he? Like in his 40s? I think they can just have him keep playing Professor X until he's like Patrick Stewart's age, and just keep him, like, he's already, I think, perfect casting for him, and I think I think only a couple of the newer X-Men movies have been good. Like, I think Days of Future Past is still the best one. But Apocalypse I didn't like. Dark Phoenix I didn't like. But I think that just like the implications of what could happen next, you could have him continue because he's already perfect casting, but they can just be given better scripts, better material, better stuff to work with. You could keep Fassbender as Magneto, or if you really wanted to, you could somehow bring in Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart again. I don't know if you should do that, though, because it kind of undermines the ending of Logan. That's another reason why I don't know if we should get Hugh Jackman back, because Logan was such a great movie and such a great ending for Patrick Stewart's Professor X and Hugh Jackman's Logan. I think it would kind of undermine that ending. But like I would not be shocked. Well, I'd be shocked, but also wouldn't be shocked if at the end of the season Magneto shows up, and that's their big like end of season bombshell. Like if you were to compare this to Mandalorian, this is their Ahsoka moment with that, and then their Luke Skywalker moment will be Magneto at the end. That would be nuts. But my mind was just racing at what could happen now when we saw the X-Men Quicksilver. Like, that was bonkers. I did for a second expect it to be Aaron Taylor Johnson, like she brought him back. But what's interesting is, I'm curious if they're going to call them X-Men now, because at the time Age of Ultron was out, it was like a year after Days of Future Past. Both movies had a Quicksilver. Everyone thought the X-Men one was better, but they weren't allowed to legally say mutants. In Age of Ultron, Quicksilver and Wanda were called Miracles. They were saying the Age of Miracles has begun or whatever. And also, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but do they ever call them Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch ever in the movies? As far as I know, I think they only call them Wanda and Pietro, but maybe I'm wrong about that. At first, I saw the silver hair on whoever was at the door, and I thought it was old Magneto, but then that would have been crazy. But I think this was even crazier. And it's going to be interesting to watch the next. I think there's only 4 episodes left to see what's going to happen, because there's rumors that maybe Agnes is somehow, maybe her husband that she keeps talking about is, people are theorizing that it's Mephisto is involved with all this, that Mephisto's kind of like boosting her powers or something and trying to turn her evil, because there's going to be dark forces out there that recognize her power, that want to turn her into a villain. But, oh, sorry about that. I think there's a helicopter flying over. I do like the introduction of Sword. That's cool. When I first saw that, I was like, oh, no way. Sword still a big thing in the comics, and I was wondering when that was going to be introduced. But it makes sense after Thanos and all these alien intergalactic threats that they would bring in an organization like that. Having the ties to like Captain Marvel and stuff like that's pretty cool. Like the James Woo guy, Jimmy Woo from Ant-Man, Darcy, all these characters are connecting back to the other movies, and I think that's pretty cool. But so far the show is pretty bizarre. Like, it's the biggest departure, I think, from Marvel that they've done. But I'm enjoying it. It's a slow burn, but I think it's pretty good. So I think it's pretty clear they're setting up this is going to be like a House of M thing. I think they're setting up her to be a pretty major villain, and then maybe in Doctor Strange 2 she's going to be maybe Doctor Strange is going to help her like not be a villain anymore, or by the end of the show she's not. I don't know what they're going to do, to be honest. Because I heard rumors that she was going to be kind of his protege in the next one, but if she's a villain up until then why would he be teaching a villain? I don't know. Or there was rumors of Nightmare being a possibility in Doctor Strange 2, but that was when the last director was involved, so that might have changed. But Mephisto could be a very interesting development for this show. But this opens the door for X-Men to come in, and that's going to be cool when they introduce, because they're working on a new Fantastic Four movie. And what sucks though is it would have been nice to see. It would have been cool to be able to see all the smartest people in Marvel in a room together. Like, I would have loved to have seen Tony Stark interacting with. Well, we already got Tony Stark interacting with Bruce Banner and Strange, but it would have been cool also to have Reed Richards there. So it's going to be interesting watching them try to weave in the new Fantastic Four and X-Men. And like I said, I wouldn't hate it if they just basically kept all the currently cast people, or if they kept the current cast of X-Men at just the same actors and continue forward. I hope they're not trying to say that the older X-Men movies are part of this timeline, because that causes a lot of problems to try to say, yeah, those movies are also in the MCU. I think they should just have a clean break and be like, okay, that was a alternate universe, and now from here on out, these characters are in this universe. Ignore what came before. Like, that's in its own timeline. Otherwise, it's just a big mess. And I can easily see how they're going to reintroduce Deadpool under Disney. It's shocking to me that Disney is going to do a rated R movie, Deadpool still. It's cool, but I didn't think they would do it. Because there's ways to do it cleverly with PG-13. You can have, because he's the only Marvel character that breaks the fourth wall, you could have him acknowledge the fact that he has to rein himself in a little bit, and they could actually bleep him, and like he could get mad at the movie, be like, "Ah, oh, Disney, why do you have to bleep me?" And he's like, keeps reminding himself that it's PG-13. So you could use the censorship as the jokes, like the jokes can incorporate that. So a PG-13 Deadpool would have worked, but I'm happy that they're still doing R, and it's going to be kind of funny to see him break the fourth wall and acknowledge that he's now owned by Disney nonetheless. That's going to be pretty neat. So he's like the easiest character to bring into a new universe, because he can just explain it away. But what do you guys think about having Quicksilver played by Evan Peters in here? Did that blow your mind as much as it blew mine? Do you think it's a bad idea to introduce the multiverse, or do you think it's an interesting door to open for MCU? Who else do you want to see? Do you want to see like Hugh Jackman come out of retirement? Part of me doesn't want to see that because Logan had such a good ending. I think they should recast. Do you want to see Fassbender back? And on top of that, you could do some weird stuff, like, because they're going to get the old Spider-Man back. What if they do weird stuff like get Edward Norton Hulk back just for a cameo, or Eric Bana Hulk, or I don't know, the dude that played Captain America in the 90s. Like, just do all kinds of weird stuff. someone suggested, I think it was Blind Wave, they suggested getting David Hasselhoff as the alternate universe Nick Fury from the old movies, or like Ben Affleck Daredevil, or Jennifer Garner Elektra, all those early Marvel movies that were not part of the MCU that are considered pretty bad. Maybe even Wesley Snipes as Blade. I don't know. There's so much you could do. But does it come at the expense of stakes? That's my question. What do you guys think about all of this? Let me know in the comments. Tell me who you want to see, and I'll figure out whether or not I'm going to review the rest of the season. I guess you'll know next Friday after the next episode if I'm going to review it or not. But I'll just wait and see. I'll see you guys in my next video. Hopefully I'm not stuffed up anymore. Thank you for watching.